Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to Nerd Inventor, where this week we're gonna make a knife handle out of recycled cork and resin. Now you might be wondering what kind of blades those are in front of me, and the answer to that question is Rasmus Leon Steinsgaard, a fellow maker and talented blacksmith out of Norway who sent me those blades so I can play around with a couple of ideas. But let's put them aside for now and start with our main ingredient, you guessed it right, cork, which going by how long this quarantine thing has been going on, we should all have plenty of. Now, using our blender, we are processing about 10 of those cork, adding them one by one on medium to high setting for around 1 to 2 minutes. The consistency is right when our workshop smells like a distill caught on fire and or the cork has the size of rice grains. Next up, we're gonna get our silicone mold out and fill it up with the shredded cork, making sure to press it in firmly to get rid of any big air pockets and therefore needing less resin. Talking about resin, we will now mix up a batch by measuring the right amount of part A and B by weight, as instructed in the manual. The total amount needed depends on the size of your mold. Taking our tiny whisk, we will now give the resin a good mix for at least 2 to 3 minutes before we add our dry ingredient, the pigment. I am using about 1 to 5 tablespoons and tiny whisk again till everyone gets to know each other and the mixture has the consistency of icing. Please don't try to eat that. Next, we put the resin into the mold, taking short breaks between the pores to let the resin settle and fill in all the little gaps created by the cork. It's also good to give the mold a little squeeze to make sure that all the air bubbles can escape. Since the cork will float on top of the resin, we will have to prepare a little something to keep it down. So we're gonna wrap the whole thing in packaging tape. Using an ice pick, it doesn't have to be an expensive Copper D branded one, any pointy tool will do. We are going to put some holes into the tape to help the rest of the trapped air to escape. Into the pressure chamber it goes for about 4 hours, and that's where I realized that my workshop is too small to properly walk out of the frame. After its time in the pressure chamber, I took the mold out and left it out overnight to completely harden. All we have to do now is cutting and removing the tape. You can see that through the process the material actually shrunk a bit, and demold or cast it blank. By the bottom layer of resin you can tell that even with the shrinkage, the cork tried to float. To get the rough shape of the blank, I'm gonna use the table saw, and yeah, that camera perspective is not gonna work. Let's switch that. And we're gonna square the whole thing up, cutting away pieces from top and bottom to even the surface. To get a better idea of the size and shape of the handle, I take the blade and a marker and trace the tang and rough shape directly onto the material. Since I also want to add a decorative blade guard, I mark the outline of the blank on a 3mm piece of brass and cut it out with a saw. This is also the perfect moment to mention that brass is a great heat conductor and you don't want to touch it directly after cutting. Learned that the hard way. Now we're just gonna hold a piece of brass to the handle, transfer the lines of the tang, and are ready for drilling. Getting the trusty drill press, adjusting the right height, and done. Oh, remember what I said about cutting in heat? Yep, same goes for drilling. Using our tiny file, we're now gonna open up the holes we drilled to the point where the tang can actually fit. Going back to the drill press, we will now drill a hole with the same diameter and depth as the tang into the blank, and then we can finally do our first dry fit with all of the parts. Now for the glue up, I'm using 5-minute epoxy, which I am applying liberally inside the handle, on the tang and also on the guard. Using a couple of clamps, I'm clamping everything together, try to keep it in place till the epoxy settles. Now that all the parts are combined, it's back to the bandsaw, where we will cut out the rough shape of the handle, making sure to leave enough material for our next working step. If we are happy with the overall feel of it, we can now give the handle its final shapes, starting with a rasp for the rough contours, continuing with a file, and finally sandpaper, where we're gonna work ourselves up from 60 grit to 400 grit, till we can get a nice and smooth finish. I may or may not have tested the blade by carving a piece of hardwood off camera, so I'm just giving it a small resharpen here, and all there is left to do now is add some mineral oil to the handle, which tones down the color of the cork a little bit and gives it a nice sheen. Before testing the sharpness of the knife and showing the close-ups, I want to again thank Rasmus for sending me those blades. I'll post a link to his YouTube and Insta down in the video description. Also, we just passed 300 subscribers on this channel, and I would like to take this opportunity to say hello and thank you. Now we all know that it is rule on YouTube that the sharpness of a knife has to be tested on either a tomato or the hair on my arm. I did cut myself the last time I tried this on my arm, and that's not something I want to repeat on camera. But since I like to switch things up once in a while, eggplant it is. Solanine. Now you guys can enjoy those close-up shots, while I'm gonna rinse my mouth.